You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back with a program sponsored and brought to you by Rabbi Shea Hecht. I know Rabbi Shea Hecht for so many years. In fact, he used to live on the west side. I miss him and his wife, Rebbetzin Baylor. When they lived on the west side, certainly added to the community, but wherever he is, he's a great addition. And we had him last week, and this week he's back. He's a member of a very distinguished family of fourth-generation American Jews, rabbi scholars. He's one of the 12 children of the eminent Rabbi Jacob J. Hecht and Rebbetzin Chava Hecht of blessed memory. Formerly AD programmer, Rabbi Shea has broadened his focus to directing the multifaceted Jewish educational organization, the National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education. He's currently a life strategist, family counselor, specializing in crisis counseling. He still specializes in cults. His first book is called Confessions of a Jewish Cultbuster. And his second book is called Whatever It Takes, Restoring Hope. Great stories. He's been out there in the field, so he can tell you great stories. And we're going to share some of them on this very, very special broadcast. But first, let me welcome you again for a second week. And we got a tremendous reaction from last week's show. I'm sure you also got a lot of feedback as well, correct?
Shua Tov, Agutavach to you, Zev, and to your wonderful audience. Let me say to you something. I did not realize people were calling me. I have a call from Eretz Yisrael. I had two calls from two people in Florida who have watched the show. Actually, one told me he watched it afterwards. I don't know exactly you heard it live or afterwards, but Talkline communication is definitely out there. And of course, for my own local people, community today, I live in Crown Heights. Many, many people came to me. Most people gave me a lot of chizuk, said they agreed with me, and a few told me they thought I didn't bring across my points strong enough. Perhaps I was a little too excited. I was in a lot of pain last Saturday night. When you listen to parents tell you their stories, and the way I was taught to be a good rabbi and a good therapist is you need to feel for that person's pain. You need to feel for that person's problem. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you the bracha of hatzlacha of helping that person. If you don't feel for that person, there's a tremendous story with the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe had two children. One was known as the Razah, and one was known as the Rashab, who later became Rebbe. Now, the Razah was a year and a half older than the Rebbe Rashab. And they're once playing a game. Children play games. So what do you play? So they said, hey, let's play Rebbe and Chassid. And the Razah, being he was the older brother of Zalman Aaron, he said, listen, I'm going to be the Rebbe, and you, the Rashab, Rabbi Shalom Dov Ber, you're going to be the Chassid. Okay, so he came into the Rebbe and he said, listen, I need to get some advice. I need to get some hadracha. I have a problem and I have to come to the Rebbe. So he made up a little problem. He comes to his older brother who's playing Rebbe, and he presents the problem and he gives him an answer. And then the Rebbe Rashab says to him, you didn't krechts. You didn't sigh. You didn't identify with my pain. And because of this, you're no Rebbe. My question is no question. Your answer is no answer. You're not a Rebbe. So I know one of the most important things when you counsel people, when you guide people, either as a therapist or as a rabbi, and I know in therapy and in psychology, they teach very different. The only way I know I'm going to reach the person, help the person, inspire the person, is if I have to feel for their pain. And last week, I saw in front of me many, many parents in tremendous pain because they lost their children. And that's why perhaps I was a little bit loud, a little bit forthcoming, but hopefully we'll address some of those issues towards the end of this program. And boy, I have some things that now that I'm on my own. And yes, this program, thanks to Zev, is sponsored by the National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education. My bosses thought it was important that we have this program to be able to bring the many things that were not brought out clearly last week. And some of the things were simply, I did not have an opportunity to speak. So, by the way, you out there, if you want to answer to what I say, buy time for next week, and I'm sure, well, next Saturday night is a little bit difficult, but buy some time on the Talkline communication and present your case. And that would be beautiful. So for those of you who will want to catch up from last week, you may want to call some of your friends to join us, because I have one or two very, very big, I don't know if I should call it a bombshell to
And Yeshiva, they used to
lay
call
down.
it a bumba.
A bomba, yeah. Okay, being that Rosh Hashanah is coming, I'd like to start off. Yes, I am a rabbi, and I'd like to first start off an idea in regard to Rosh Hashanah, and then we'll get on to my two books that I have written. Both of them have relevance till today, even though, well, the Cultbuster book may be very, very, very relevant to some of the things that happened last week and this week. But also my book now that I've written, Whatever It Takes, Restoring Hope. And we'll talk about who I wrote these books for and what I want to inspire. But let me tell you something. We're getting great reviews, great feedback. In fact, when we'll talk about the books, I'll tell you a fascinating story. I just played this week of a victim that sent me a text about how the pages of my book restored hope for them. So let me start off with this. Rosh Hashanah, we celebrate the creation of man. Many people think, when the first question, when was the world created? Aleph Tishrei. No. Rosh Hashanah, we don't commemorate the creation of the world. We create the creation of man. It's, truth be told, on the 25th day of the month of El, the world was created. Well, a little bit of a machlokes in the Gemara. Rashi brings it down, but it's on the first day of Rosh Hashanah that man was created. Well, what is the purpose of man? You know, it's interesting. The 17th century English philosopher Thomas Hobbes said that man is driven by ego. It's basically all about ego. Well, the next guy I'm going to quote is more familiar to many of us, and that's Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysts. He says man is driven by pleasure. That's what we want, is pleasure. By the way, I want to say, and Sigmund Freud, much of his stuff as today was debunked. At one point, that was the Bible of psychoanalysts, and today, many of his stuff, first of all, they question about some of his studies years later, etc. But he basically says man is driven by pleasure. Viktor Frankl, of blessed memory, the Austrian neurologist, psychologist, he basically says man is driven by purpose, and he wrote a great book and to basically prove his points. Rabbi Shea Zalman of Liadi, basically an 18th century Hasidic master, says man is driven by godliness, really a higher source. We are all created in the image of God, and therefore godliness. Let's take a look at these four different philosophies. You know, Hobbes says basically that man is driven by ego. I think the best example for that is, look what's doing in the political arena. What people will do to get their name in the paper, to put themselves in front. It's all about ego. And that's driven. Those who run, those who don't run, those who criticize, whatever the situation is, it's ego. Well, the next one is Freud, pleasure. That we can have a pretty good understanding. You know, if we just think about one behavior that we have, eating, or I should say obesity. You know, studies show that in America, that there's, I believe it's 300,000 deaths per year because of obesity. 60% of men and I'm sorry, it's 75% of men and close to 60% of women feel that they're overweight. And why? Why do we keep eating? It's pleasure. We're driven by pleasure. Viktor Frankl came along, and by the way, in his book that sold over 25 million copies in many different languages, he was in Auschwitz. He has some very, very beautiful stories, in fact, in his book. He basically says, no, man is driven by purpose. And he says those, in fact, who lived through the Holocaust or through other type of tsuris, other type of difficulties, It's very much so because they're driven by purpose. By the way, there's interesting stories that with the Lubavitcher Rebbe that Viktor Frankl one day was ready. He was ready to really give up because they weren't accepting his philosophy in the world of in the world of academia. And he was actually thinking of just running away from Austria and running to Australia to just be far away from everybody. There's a knock on his door, and a young lady comes and says, "I have a message for you from the rabbi in Brooklyn, from the Lubavitcher Rebbe." He says, "Don't give up. You're going to be successful." And we know Viktor Frankl and some of the accomplishments that he has had. But yet, to us, things are still not perfect and still not great because we know there's even a higher purpose. Man is driven by spirituality, by godliness, by doing something good and beyond ourselves. And that is the meaning and teachings of Rav Shneur Zalman, basically mostly in Tanya, but a cornerstone to the teachings of Chassidus. My dear friends, this coming Shabbos and Sunday, as we go to shul and we make some resolutions and we think about how we can improve ourselves and improve the world to make the place a better place, let's think of what is our drive? What is our purpose? What are we hoping to accomplish? To recognize that we're not here, God forbid, for ego. We're not here, God forbid, just for pleasure. We're not even here just for purpose. We are here because God put us here. And we have responsibilities. And we have things that we have to accomplish through the study of Torah, through the observance of mitzvahs, both between man and between man and God. If we work on ourselves, if we fulfill the duties that we have for ourselves, we will be successful. We'll be successful to the greatest times as we are promised throughout the prophets, the day of the coming of Mashiach. Let's hope and pray that we can still make it still before Rosh Hashanah. We can really be in Yerushalayim and really celebrate the holiday the way it was supposed to, or the way it was originally planned by Torah itself. But if not, first of all, I bless every single one of you and your families with a keksiva v'achsima tova, a good keben shnur, a year of spirituality, a year of physical blessings, a year of really abundance in every aspect. Let's hope and pray that it's this year, the coming year of Tavshin Pei Daled, that we really change the entire world, uplift the entire world, and make the world a place of safety and love, compassion, of course, and godliness. Most of all, that we have this connection. So I hope I gave you a few words of inspiration for the great days of Rosh Hashanah, and that you will take those words to heart. And we're now ready to get into topic number 2 this evening, and to talk about my 2 books. Before I get into talking about the books, I really want to also take a moment to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Both these books were really a tremendous amount of work that went into. Some of you remember the book of Confessions of a Jewish Cultbuster, my first original copy, which came out in 1985. About 10 years ago, Chaim Chlorfin of blessed memory actually came to New York, and we rewrote the book. We added 5 beautiful stories. One about beautiful story right in the beginning about my father of blessed memory, and about how the work that he did in this area of cults and religions, Jewish people who needed tremendous help. Also, with the inspiration, and really he was my writer, Chaim Chlorfin, as I did mention, of blessed memory. He recently passed away.
Yeah, I did know he passed away. He was also very talented. He made the Leonard Nimoy production of the Golem, which was a
Golem. He also made a model based on the Ramchal of the 3rd Beis HaMikdash. People don't realize most of the time we see pictures of the 2nd Beis HaMikdash. He made a model of the 3rd Beis HaMikdash. He also wrote other books. He wrote a book on Shevet Mitzvos B'nai Noach. He wrote some secular books as well. Yeah, the man was truly a genius. He also wrote a book about the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, based on Yechezkel, and it's really a sefer. It's a really fascinating book. I should have had a copy here to show you as well. But he worked with me. We worked on a number of years, 2 years for the writing, and then of course there's a lot of work that goes in after you do the writing. With my new book right now, Whatever It Takes. Now, very interestingly, our subtitle, Restoring Hope, because many of us who go through various different sorrows, particularly with problems within our family, we feel that, we don't have who to go to, or even if we get the help, nothing's going to help. And I write over 100 stories within this book that end in a positive way. And I'm hoping that this will inspire other parents and mechanechim to realize it really pays to invest. It really pays to try to help, because you can and will be successful.
And in the book, you talk about not just cults, talking about people with agunas, which means they have trouble getting a kosher divorce from their husband, dealing with drug addiction and some afflictions of society with racial tensions, etc. So you cover a lot of different ground. In fact, I neglected to mention that you are also a radio broadcaster. You are WWRL. You did some program with us over the years. So before we get to some of the cult things, how did you end up on WWRL, which was a black radio station in New York?
Well,
at the time.
In 1991, after the riots that took place in Crown Heights, I was positioned sort of and chosen to be the spokesperson, one of the spokespeople for the Crown Heights community. And I therefore started working with many leaders within the black community, namely Dr. Edison O. Jackson, who was the president of Medgar Evers at that time. And we developed a true, real friendship. And we worked on many, many initiatives, what today they're doing around the city and other cities between Jews and blacks, or blacks and Jews, and were very, very successful. At that time, of course, it was under the leadership of the borough president of that time. And he really did a tremendous amount. Howard Golden, he really inspired us, and we inspired others. I remember walking the halls of Congress together with President O. Jackson to try to get more youth corps jobs for the Felds and Crown Heights. But after developing that relationship, I had a name out there within the black community as well as a person looking to foster relationships and bring peace to our city and harmony within the people within our city. Similar to what the Rebbe when Dinkins came and said, I'm going to try to bring peace between the two communities, the Rebbe said, no, it's one community. So adopting that philosophy from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and of course, working for those 4 years, I had a name out there, and it was a few years later that they invited me to be a co-host, first with Felipe Luciano, and then with Karen Hunter. It was 2 great years that I had, 4 hours a day on the radio, 5 days a week, and spoke to all New Yorkers, interviewed tens of people from all walks of life, from all different countries, in fact. And in fact, we had a queen that we once interviewed, princes and princesses. It was really it was really a very, very nice time. A 2-year run that went extremely well. And I do write about that, how I got the job and how I lost the job, by the way, when they let me go as well. But it was
why did they let you go?
Well, I'm not sure if they had it in their intention to let me go, because it sort of worked out. But it was more about, at that time, the carbon testing. We were talking about how old the world was. There was also some arguments. People within the black community sometimes create an alliance or a common denominator between what's going on in Israel and what's going on in other places of the world, particularly with the PLO. And what they don't understand is that it's a very, very different story. When you talk about the details of, a 2-state solution, you can't break Manhattan into 4 different states, okay? From from Wall Street to 32nd Street, we'll give it to one group. From 32nd to 59th, we'll give it to another thing, and et cetera. So, but many of the stories that I write about, yes, and I do write about Agunis. One of the reasons why I write about it is because I want people, many people who are either suffering or talking about the Aguna problem, say there are no rabbis that stepped forward. That's not true. I myself, my father before me, he one who trained me and taught me, and many Rabbanim have been outspoken. Many Rabbanim have done even beyond the letter of the law. It's questionable, I'll say it this way, questionable if it was legal what they did. In fact, I write about a story about how he helped a young lady get her get. You can question if it was legal. I say maybe it didn't even happen.
Can you share the story with us? What happened?
Well, there was a Bezdin that had the bravery to paskin koifenoisai, and there was a group
Which means
of,
you force the person to give a kosher get.
And again, certain Bati Dinim today are, today right now, with after what took place about 17 years ago with the FBI, it changes some of the landscaping. But before that, there were certain...
Referring to the arrest of Rabbi Mendel Epstein, who helped coerce people to give a get using, sometimes beatings and other methods. So he got himself incarcerated over that.
Yeah, unfortunately. But there was a kaifanesai, and there was a chop in place. They grabbed the young man, brought him to a safe house, and it was very interesting, by the way. He immediately says, I want to give a get. He immediately says, I want to make sure that the get is kosher. And so it's interesting that even though some of these men play hardball and say, I'm not going to give a get, in truth, they know they're not married. They really want to give the get and move on with their life. I also to speak about predators within our community. You see, sometimes rabbis have to do the thing that's not necessarily the most popular thing. And when I had to fight against Jewish cults, it was likewise the same thing. The pressure that I received from my friends, never mind my enemies, that say, hey, Shia, you're on the wrong side over here. There was a cult known as the Call of the Shofar that was amongst the Fruma community. You went on a 2-day seminar. Why they did it, set it up on Shabbos, I don't know, but it was Shabbos and Sunday and the 2-day seminar. And they did many of the things that cults do. Isolation. You don't know they take away your watch, so you don't know what time it is. The controlling of time, etc. And many of the people, they also, when they went out, they were sworn to secrecy. You were not allowed to say what happened during those 48 hours.
Was this the cult that preyed on Crown Heights individuals?
Yes, it did. And unfortunately...
Was it a Jewish-run cult?
It was, yes, it was.
Was it religious? Or?
Religious Jews that basically ran the cult. They got endorsements of rabbis. Well, isn't that quite interesting? Rabbis gave the endorsements to it. Rabbis attended and said they felt it was very good and very helpful to self-development.
What did they do? What was the raison d'entrance of this group? What was their selling point?
I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it. The bottom line is the hundreds of Junge Light, which is a terminology for young men, black hatters, went for seminars. This was going on for close to a year's time, and until I was somewhat forced. I can't even take the credit for it, but I was forced to take a position. And they said, hey, you're the cultbuster. You're the man with the experience. You better speak up, and you better really tell the truth, what you really believe. And I called it a cult, and that's exactly what it was. We ended up having a dion. Interesting how history repeats itself. There was a tribunal of rabbis to listen to both sides. And this time, not like recently, this time both sides did show up. So Simcha, I don't want to say his last name, of the cult, had a group of people. He had psychiatrists in the college. He had rabbis with him in the room. I showed up to the dion. The first time I came all alone, I didn't know they were going to stack the place. I thought it was me against him. Rabbi David Cohen was the Rav who sat together with Rabbi Avram Twersky, Olav Sholem, the psychiatrist, and at the end, they actually implode himself. But at a certain point, they asked certain questions that Rabbi David Cohen said, and Rabbi David Cohen basically said, I'm not putting it in writing. I don't put anything in writing in the last 15 years, but I'm saying people are not allowed to follow you in this therapy or self-help group. Again, very similar to what is happening now. There are rabbis who gave endorsements. Do they know anything about cults? No. Were they even told a word about cults? No. But they have given endorsements, and therefore it must be good. Maybe not. As we moved, I want to talk about my book again for another few minutes, and then we'll get on to talk about some of the bombshells that I have to share with you. In my book, Whatever It Takes, and by the way, it's a good read, if I have to say so myself. Chaim Klorfin is the writer. He was a genius in what he did. It's easy reading, and you will definitely enjoy it. You may not agree with some of my philosophies and ideas, but you will love the stories that you will read. And as I mentioned, over 100 stories are in the book. And yes, I take it on head on about the predators in our community and about different Rabbanim who are quiet, who have not stated, who have not stopped these molesters that came in either into the yeshivas or into the synagogues, into our shuls, into our community. So the book has a full gamut. And again, perhaps I can say somewhat the crown being talking about Jewish cults. Yes, it could be. And we'll soon talk about the victim, because people don't understand the word victim, I believe. And I know last week I was accused for talking down to people. It's not about that at all. It's about the love that I have for you and care for you, that I say, hey, you're not necessarily strong enough to weather the storm. If it was snowing outside right now, you have to dress very different than if it's hot outside. And most of us in our education, we're not taught how to find the cult. We're not taught how to protect ourselves from the games, the mind games that cults play. It's not about how smart you are. It's simply we are all vulnerable to get caught up in a cult. And by the way, that cult, which I call life seminars within the book, it's chapter 27 for those who want to take a look at it. I basically make that point very, very clearly. It's because that's why Melamdim of Yeshivas ended up going to this seminar. Again, first of all, my question was, how did you go to a seminar? Rabbanim, I know, went to the seminar and came back and still spoke highly about the cult. And called me up. I remember one guy calling me up, said, Shia, I know all the work you do in your cults. This time you're wrong. You overstepped your bounds. I said, let's wait. It took weeks and months until many people who went through that 2-day seminar came out and told the truth. What they swore earlier, they're not going to tell. They told the truth. And boy, the community went crazy. People without a community are going crazy, Crown Heights, but as well as they were getting people from many, many different communities around New York and around the United States.
Those that are just tuning in, you listen to a special presentation. Rabbi Shea Hecht is with us from the distinguished family of fourth-generation American rabbis. He's written 2 books. One is called, his latest is called Whatever It Takes, Restoring Hope. First book is Confessions of a Jewish Cultbuster. It's published by Mosaic Press. And we are going to give some of our listeners a chance to win a free copy of the book. We're going to give away 10 copies of the book. You have to let us know which book you like. Just send me an email to zev@talklinenetwork.com. Please put Rabbi Shea Hecht in the byline. Give us your name, address, and zip code. And and tell us which book you want. And we're going to try to accommodate you with that. Again, that's zev@talklinenetwork.com. Good time, Rabbi Shea Hecht, for us to define exactly what makes an organization or a group a cult.
Let me stop it this way. A lot was said last week, on your program. 3 hours of good information, talked on each other, weren't listening to each other necessarily. Of course, I only talk about myself. I'm sure the other people listened very, very well to what I had to say. But my friends called and said, listen, Shea, it was very, very important what you did, but I'm not sure people really got the point. I said, you know what? If that's the case, Zev, Talkline Communication is definitely a vehicle to get my message across. And I went out and I discussed it with my board, my executive board in the organization, and we decided to buy time. First of all, let me start saying thank you to those people this week who called me to give me support, to give me chizuk, to compliment me on the work that I do in general, and particularly in this case. By the way, the pressure that we had, and I say we, the pressure that we had that I should not go on that radio program was unbelievable. I was called, my brothers were called who work for the organization. I don't carry, it's true, I'm called the chairman of the organization, but they carry the leadership to this organization. By the way, it's an organization that through the year, we service thousands of families, literally thousands of families. First on a release time program, Greater New York, we take kids out of public schools 1 hour a week and teach them Torah. And it's through our camps, through our yeshivas. We have Baal Tshuva Yeshiva for young men. We have a Baal Tshuva Yeshiva for young women. We give out tamichas. We give out food packages. We have a food pantry. There's a tremendous amount what we do. It's a tremendous amount of counseling, toys for hospitalized children. There's a tremendous amount of work. The pressure that we got was really very interesting. But I always ask whoever called me, I asked them the following question. You're calling me and telling me not to get involved. Do you know what a cult is? They said, no. Do you know the work that I do in cults? Many of them said, yes. I said, well, do I know what, up until now, do I know what I'm doing? Yes, Rabbi Hecht, I must say, yes, you know what you're doing. You have a very good record. Well, I say, if I have a good record, trust me for this one as well. Oh, but don't forget, you have to make sure that you have the facts correct. You better, people can be telling you things, you can misunderstand something. People are telling you things that are wrong. I said, okay, falosich of mir, as they say in Yiddish. You can rely on me that I will double check my facts. And in a few minutes, I will tell you where I got my information from. And by the way, Zev, I'm not even talking to you. There's one man I'm talking to that lives in Great Neck. I'm talking to him, and I'm talking to some of the Talmidim that I know are listening to say to them, listen, perhaps we should talk one-on-one. What happened is after the program, there are 2 telephone calls that I got that really unbelievably, gave me a tremendous insight. Sunday morning, I get a call from a guy. He says, Rabbi Hecht, I have to be anonymous. I said, fine, not a problem. With me, you can call me anonymous. But I want to tell you something. I work for law enforcement. That's why I cannot tell you what my name is. I have been trained in detecting voices when I listen to people, if they're telling the truth, there's a lot of different techniques in this. I've been trained in that area. And I want to tell you something. I listened to the whole program, and I listened to the parents that called. There was one parent that called that spoke about the greatness of this group, and she was lying. She was lying, and she has a lot of pain, and she doesn't have such a good relationship with her children. I knew exactly who he was talking about because I know the lady's name and know who she is and know quite a bit about that family. So that's the first thing. It gave me a lot of chizuk. But that's not the call I want to talk about tonight. The call I want to talk about tonight is Monday morning. I got the call that I waited for. And I'm going to get more calls like this. The voice was soft. The voice was a little bit afraid. The voice was a voice of truth, purity, and perhaps, I don't want to say on a spiritual level, but there was a holiness to the voice. The voice started off, is this Rabbi Hecht? I said, yes, it is. Is this the Rabbi Hecht that was on the radio about the yeshiva? I said, yes. Well, I need your help. and he see my best friend. I ran away from the group, but my best friend is still there. Can you help me get my best friend out of that cult? I said, well, we have to see. We have to talk, and perhaps we have to get together. Of course, the person remained anonymous, and is still anonymous till, although we spoke another 5 times and gave me some fascinating information about the things that go on. Because one of the things the person said to me is, everything you said about the cult, the brown houses, the sign-in, the all-in letters, the attitudes of how the rabbi treats and talks to some of his students, it's all correct. I've been there. I know you're there, and I want to get my friend out. Now, my dear friends, one of the big accusations against Shea Hecht was, you never went down to the yeshiva. You know, it's like saying to the judge, how can you judge if this thing happened if you didn't go down to the place that's there? You know, I have to go down to the place of the crime? I know I don't. I don't have to, but I do have to listen to witnesses. And witnesses are very, very important. And Torah says, Al pi shnayim eidim or shlosh eidim. Notice one thing last week. No one answered me, how many people do I need to hear from to know there's something wrong? Because it would seem to me, if one kid came back from the yeshiva, any yeshiva, and said, the Rebbe did something wrong to me, the Rebbe molested me, what do I have to say? No, the other 29 kids in the class say the Rebbe is perfect? Oh, the victim we're not going to listen to now. We're going to listen to the other 29 kids. What does that have to do with 29 kids? Let me tell you something. There was one thing that was not spoken about last week. We spoke about, they spoke to the students, meaning the boys, the bachrim. They spoke to the families. But what about the women involved in this group? Did anyone speak to the women? Because this week alone, I spoke already to 3 women who told me that, and they said, I ran away from that place. 2 women were able to go down, spoke about details. So, that's it. And by the way, I spoke more than double to men, more than double. So if you're doing your math, okay, so we have 3, more than double men. I basically spoke to more than 12 parents. 12 parents. 1 parent would have been enough. 2 parents would have been enough. 12 parents I spoke to. And here's the clincher. I spoke to 5 local rabbanim. 5 local rabbanim from Great Neck. Okay? Not one had a nice thing to say about the yeshiva or about the rabbi. And here's the clincher, you know. I have now, remember something. I'm not, when I say I, what I said up until now, I meant I myself did, okay? But there are other people involved in this investigation. There are 2 Rosh Hashivas, Choshev Rosh Hashivas, who have hundreds and hundreds of Talmidim. Number 1, 14 months this investigation is going on. And by the way, should I tell you how many people we called who didn't want to speak to me? They're afraid. The biggest joke was, we called a Rav this week, who said, I want to talk to you, but I have no time now until after Tishrei, after Simchas Torah. I said, excuse me? What? It wasn't me. One of my people called this rabbi. And he says, no, he has no time to speak about it until after. You're talking about a potential of a fire burning, a potential of neshamas who need to be brought back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur, and you're telling me you have no time to speak? You call yourself a Rav? Okay. A Rav, a Choshev Rav in Queens, a Svardish Rav. Again, I wasn't given permission to say his name. A girl, 2 years ago, a girl in the community called him up and said, they're ready me a shidduch from Great Neck, from this yeshiva. He said to her, do not consider it. The place is a cult. Okay? So these are not my words. These are words of Choshev Rabbanim. Oh, you say you have an endorsement from many people? Well, let me tell you about those people who endorse you. Because, you see, one of the Rabbanim that they went to speak to called me into his office. And after speaking to me for 2 hours, he said to me, Rabbi Hecht, I'm not quoting him exactly, I'm paraphrasing. Rabbi Hecht, based on what you say, based on what you know, based on your experience, you have to continue your work. You have to expose these people. He didn't say the word expose. I'm using the word expose. You have to continue your work. So, by the way, I just want to say something else because of the panel last week, there was a parent called, and I felt for the parent. They were attacked by somebody on the panel. Guys, listen, the parents are victims like the children are victims. I want to say that again. The parents are victims like the children are victims. Don't tell me that my mother is happy, my father is happy. So what? Your father and mother are victims just like you're a victim. And by the way, I know that bacher who's going to call me this week. And by the way, I will make sure you will be anonymous. I didn't mention any names till now, did I? Anyone who came to me, you don't even know what the story is. You don't know who they are, where they're living. And by the way, I met people. I got into my car and drove hundreds of miles to meet some of the former students of this place. And again, it's horrifying, some of the things that I've heard. So when you speak to people who listen to both sides and they say to me to go ahead, when you speak to parents that basically say, God, when you speak to former students and you speak to young ladies who are involved in that group and say to me, Rabbi Hecht, thank you for what we're doing.
Robert, we're getting interference.
Let
Let me just get our interference going over here. And those that are just tuning in, you're listening to a special broadcast with Rabbi Shea Hecht of the National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education. And we're looking at his books, including Whatever It Takes. And you can send us an email if you want to get a copy of. We're giving out some free copies of the books. So send us an email to zev@talklinenetwork.com, zev@talklinenetwork.com. Please put in the byline that you want to get the copy of the book. You tell us which book you want, either Confessions of a Jewish Cultbuster or Whatever It Takes. Again, that's zev@talklinenetwork.com. You must include, I'm getting emails, you must include your name, address, and zip code as part of it. Okay? So please include that. Okay? It's zev@talklinenetwork.com. Rabbi Shea Hecht is our guest, and we are trying to we encourage your emails, zev@talklinenetwork.com. Coming up later on tonight, we'll speak to Rabbi Mordechai Kamenetsky. Okay. Rabbi Shea Hecht is talking about his experiences, and over the years, he's written some fascinating stories, and we're dealing with that right now. Okay, let's see where we're getting the source. We're getting this coming in.
I'd like to give myself a plug. If you'd like to buy the book,
again, our email is zev@talklinenetwork.com, zev@talklinenetwork.com, and that's certainly a good place. If you have any questions that you want us to address, that's a good place for you to go and get that done. Okay, let's turn back to Rabbi Shea Hecht.
Okay, I just want to, if we can plug the book. If you can't get it in your local Jewish bookstore, by the way, there's some adult material in the second book. I want to tell you right now, so you may not want your children to read it, but it's something that families, I think, need to know. Some of the things that are going on and some of the people that are helping and fight some of these situations. But you can contact our office. I work for the NCFJE, National Committee for Furtherance of Jewish Education. Their address is at 824 Eastern Parkway. Their telephone number for the general number is 718-735-0200. That's 0200. If you want to contact me directly, you can call me at 718-735-0223. You can leave a message, or you can speak to my assistant, and I will get back to you. From there, of course, I'll have the pleasure of talking to you, or else I'll get back to you with the proper, in a reasonable time. My dear friends,
by the way, we don't have anybody from the yeshiva tonight. We had last week, so you're telling people about your findings. Obviously, there are people who support the yeshiva. There are people who feel like you that the yeshiva is a cult, but I'd like you to address, and people said after last week's show, Rabbi Hecht, is that sometimes you have a charismatic yeshiva, not only this one you're referring to in Great Neck, but you have Rebbeim that say, listen, the kids that are coming in come from a not such a religious background. They become more religious in the yeshiva. They tell the kids, to dissociate themselves from the parents. So what differentiates this particular group from other groups that may do similar things? What makes one a group and what makes man a cult? A lot of people ask me that question, so I address it to you.
Yeah. No, a young lady last week when I said I don't want to use the word cult, she said, listen, come on, Rabbi, give us a break. We're smart enough to understand the word cult. I mean, some of us are sophisticated and very well read. And in fact, she's right. But within my community, I'm not sure I can say that for all the people. Some of our people, English is not the first language. They don't understand the word cult. The Rabbanim, when I spoke to, they said, what is the word cult? But let me just say the following. One of the big differences, and those associated with this yeshiva will appreciate what I'm saying more than others. And that is, if your Rebbe is telling you to lie to your parents or to lie to the world out there, then there's a problem. There's a problem. Listen, a sign-in letter, all-in letter, a sign, that's nothing new. Hasidim used to do that. Ksav hiskashrus. Tell everybody, yes, that's what we do. Oh, you don't like it? Don't send your son here. You don't like it? You can leave the yeshiva. These are things you don't have to, what do you have to lie about it? You can say, hey, yes, we have the brown houses. We drink a lot of mashka. We drink a lot of whiskey. You know what? That's not the first one. Listen, any Russian chassidus will tell you they drink a lot of whiskey. So, but when you start telling your followers that they should lie to their families or they should lie to the public, I have a problem. So the answer is as follows. Yes, what you said. A charismatic leader, that's a good thing. Hashem bless you with charisma. Hashem bless you with the ability to teach, to inspire, to uplift. And by the way, most cult leaders are great guys, brilliant minds. Listen, how did they get to where they got to? They wouldn't be able to get there if they didn't have all those qualities.
Yes, they have qualities. Listen, when you hear people come back from Israel, the term more religious, parents say, oh, they belong to a Hasidic group, they belong to a cult, they became a Baal Tshuva, they're a cult. People toss around that word, as you probably know, Rabbi Shea Hecht.
Right. That's why I want to stay away from that word. But and listen, I've been accused of being in a cult, being a cult leader, et cetera, and that's why I stay away from the word. But the point's like this: when you have a yeshiva of 30 bachrim and 15 sets of parents are complaining, that's a little bit of a problem. I run about Tshuva Yeshiva. I know what the percentage is of how many people will complain to say about that. So when you have half of your student body, or they're told clearly to isolate themselves from their family of origin, which is a red flag if you've seen one, because that's the first thing what cults do. They will separate you. They will divide you from your family of origin. And of course, the next thing is this new group becomes your family. And that's why there is a certain chaverschaft, that there's certain achdus, there's a certain spirit of unity within the yeshiva, which is great. But again, you have to measure it to the backdrop. You have to measure it to the people. You have to measure it to the philosophy. You can't just say, well, there's a lot of achdus in yeshiva, because even something like achdus can be a negative. So yes, you have positive things. We know the fascinating thing, we see that Torah itself. Torah is a Sam, and it could be a Sam HaChaim, or it can be or something else. It's a potency, it's a strength, it's an energy, it's a vitality. It's really something. But that doesn't still make it good. It doesn't make it holy automatically. You still have to make sure that it's holy. And remember something, to make something pure, you need it fully pure. But to contaminate something, all I need is one little drop of ink and all the water turns purple. I just need one drop of poison and the whole thing is dangerous. We're just looking for that little bit. Stop telling me about the 95%. Stop telling me about the 90%. Stop telling me about the 99%. Let's talk about the 1%. And if you don't know anything about the 1%, then you don't have to talk about it. But I think I do know about the 1%. Based on truth be told, I'm saying everything based on what people told me. But why would they come and tell me? And why would I be telling it to you? I've met these people, and if you count the people that only I have met, we're talking about over 20 people. And now when you read about the Rosh Hashivas, the two Rosh Hashivas that spoke, and there's a business person that spoke to many, many people, and a young lady that's helping us now as well. So you're talking about 5 investigators. They all come back with the same information. We have been spoken to many, many people who are, again, in the yeshiva, out of the yeshiva, was part of the yeshiva, was not part of the yeshiva, left happy, left unhappy, parents, children, etc. You know what? I think we should be concerned. Now, by the way, those who told me, Shea, you're breaking a yeshiva, which is a good yeshiva. I'm not breaking anything. This yeshiva was over before I even got involved. It's over. If Rabbanim in Queens are telling girls, do not date the guy because it's a cult. If 5 Rabbanim, local Rabbanim, have nothing good to say about the rabbi and the yeshiva, if the rabbi that they went to the bezin that they went to, tells me, Shea, do your job. If people are basically talking about this behind the back, the yeshiva is falling apart on their own. They want to blame Shea, blame Shea. If you want to make me famous, make me famous. I'm very, very happy. It's very, very good. In fact, this whole tumult went public not because of me, and not because of the 2 Rosh Hashivas, and not because of the businessman that's involved, and not because of the young lady that's working with us as a investigator. This came thing because somebody thought it would be a great idea to put it in yeshiva world. Go ahead, let the whole yeshiva world know. Now you want to know why people are talking against you? Oh, maybe you overstepped your bound. Maybe you did something that you shouldn't have done. Oh, and by the way, calling my superiors within Lubavitch, give me a break. Give me a break. I'm the expert. That's what they say. Never mind what I say. That's what they say. And to prove, they call me. I say, listen, do you have an expertise? No. No, Shea, you don't understand. We're behind. We know that you know what you're doing. But do it a little bit different. Do it a little bit different. You have a better plan for me? What better plan is me? You mean I should allow someone to basically tarnish my reputation, attack me in front of my people, attack me in front of my family, and I should sit quietly? No. My father didn't have a lemachel for a son. I'm really sorry. You know, both my parents taught me you have to be outspoken. And those who know Rabbi J.J. Hecht, Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda Hecht, Olav Shalom, and his Zechron Livracha, know that one of the things my father thrived on, and boy, as one of my family members said to me the other day, your father would be so proud of you. The whole world is against you, but you know you're fighting for the rights. And you know where you're fighting it for justice. And you're fighting for Torah. And you're fighting for halacha. And you're fighting for das Torah. Which brings it to another thing. Rabbi Osher Balanson wrote a letter clearly to the Talmidim and said, get away from the yeshiva. The Rabbi Balanson was this rabbi's rabbi. And he writes the first half of the letter, he addresses the rabbi. He says, you have to have a karas hatov. I built you, I made you, I helped you, I taught you. I'm telling you, get out of the chinuch. It's not for you. You're a great businessman. Stay in business. Well, at least when you look on some of the lawsuits that are going on, there's a lot of money that the man is dealing with. Hey, you know what? You want to stay in business? Stay in business. There's no reason for you to be in chinuch. You want to give a shir? You want to give a shir once a week in your shul? Excellent. But for you to take students and take them away from their families and create your own family, and then tell these people to do things that they eventually, many of these people ran away from you. You know who they are very, very well. You know their names, you know their addresses, you know what the people are. My dear friends, it really boils down to this. Shea Hecht is not the issue. I'm not defending myself. It's not about this. This is about victims that are part of a yeshiva. Parents that are who are victims that are part of this yeshiva. And I will tell you, as I told to my colleague, my elder colleague, and somebody who I respect very, very much within the system, I said, these people, this father is going to come back to you at a date and say, let me get a hold of Rabbi Hecht. I want to thank him for getting my kid out of that yeshiva. I want to thank him for basically speaking up. No one had the guts to do it because this rabbi, who's a rabbi in Great Neck, says he has no time until after Simchas Torah. He has no time to save Jewish children.
Is it possible
my
he doesn't
dear friend.
believe? Is it possible he doesn't believe that these children are at risk? You are taking on the cause, but there are supporters of the yeshiva who say the yeshiva is doing a good job. Maybe he's one of those that likes what the yeshiva is doing. There are some that do like what the yeshiva is doing.
Right. So he should have said, listen, guys, you guys are wrong. Stop it. I had nothing to talk about. The man is righteous. The man is good. Please leave the yeshiva alone. You guys don't know what you're doing. He could have said that. He didn't say that. You know, one of the 5 Rabbanim that I spoke to, the local Rabbanim, he says, I can't answer your question. I said, what? Just say yes or no on the particular question that I asked him. He says, I can't answer your question. I said, Rabbi, I'm going to infer from this that you mean that it's whatever the answer. He says, I can't help you. I can't tell you. But it's not that the person went and said, listen, let me sing the guy's praises. These are people who were in the yeshiva, visited the yeshiva, know who the rabbis are, met the children, the students from there, know what the story is. And now you're telling me that I don't have a right to make a statement based on the testimony of 5 rabbanim, to make the testimony of 3 women who told me some of the things that go on there, which is a little bit strange, and more than twice as many young men who were there. You know, one of my own children asked me, Tati, why did you go speak to the women? He spoke to the men. Why do you need to speak to the women? I said, because Bina Yeseda Nitna Beisha. And you many times have, because I know this from before. The Avreich is learning in the Kollel. The man is part of it. He's a Talmud. But his wife says, listen, there's something wrong with your rabbi. We have to get out of here. And the most important, amazing thing from everything else, the level of fear that some of these people I spoke to, they're simply, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of, my dear friend? Speak truth, step up truth. And there are people who want to help you. You can come to me. I will do whatever I can to help you. But it's not only me. You know the other people, you know the 2 Rosh Hashivas that are involved. They will help you. They will protect you. They'll put you in the what is called the witness program.
It's called Witness Protection Program. Is that what you're talking about?
Witness Protection Program. We'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. And there's a business person involved. And there's a this business person, by the way, who lives in Great Neck, and has put in a tremendous amount of hours of research into this whole situation. In any event, I spoke more than I want to. Zev, you're a great guy. You have a great following. I really want to tell you, Ashikoyach, yes, it's true. We bought the time, but the fact that you did sell me the time, it was very brave of you, and I do appreciate it. For those who are listening to my voice, if you need my help, my number, 718-735-0223. Those who want, you can call me and give chizuk too. I take that as well. There is a website. I'm not even so. I think it's ncfje.org is our website. You can find out the work that we're doing, and you can for Rosh Hashanah, that's tzedakah. If you want to give to support the work that we do, that's a great thing, a great cause as well. And again, my dear fellas, my dear friends, I wish you a happy, healthy, sweet new year. Begashmius and beruchnius and begashmius and beruchnius gam yachad. May you be a year that we really, as we say on Kippur, that we wouldn't have to come on to each other for parnasa. That every woman will be able to give birth to healthy children, and we will once again be together with the Kohen Gadol and together with Mashiach in Yerushalayim and HaKodesh. And if I can end it off with, again, to push my books, it's Confessions of a Jewish Cultbuster, or whatever it takes, some great stories that will give you great inspiration. If you don't know where to get it, and your local bookstore doesn't have it, you can go on Amazon, or you can call our office and order the books. We will be more than happy to send it to you. And as far as this, my dear friends, once again, nothing would make me happier than you having a ksiv v'achsimet tova, and together we can dance together, hopefully very, very soon, U'shmashiach b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Shea Hecht of the National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education. He presented stories from his books, and obviously there's the yeshiva in Great Neck where he takes issue with, and we did present both sides last week, and if the other side wants to join us on air, we'll certainly be happy to continue that conversation as well with them. Thank you, Rabbi Shea Hecht, for joining us with the National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education. And we